If I put you in a room with 5 toddlers, dosed with caffeine, Baby Shark playing on repeat, and every sparkly toy in the world, how long would it take for the less stressed doctor is a stressful patient?
Okay, so I'm the less stressed doctor, not the no stress doctor, right? Our world is continually changing. There's always things happening. Even when, like, there was something that was saying, oh, we're trying to be perfect. No, that's ridiculous. There's no such a thing as being perfect, because even if you were perfect for that instant, the next instant the world changed and now you're not perfect anymore. So there's no perfection. There's always going to be stress. There's always things coming at you. What I will tell you is that I could probably handle it longer than most people, but not everybody, right? So as I'm a doctor, I'm seeing patients. Literally every patient could be $1 million lawsuit. Something didn't go right. You gave them the wrong antibiotic, or they took the wrong antibiotic, or they had a bad outcome, or what. They could sue you for $1 million. One of the problems I got into, which I wrote in Mindset Matters, is 30 years ago, my board was saying, hey, you guys are under-treating pain. 20 years later, they're going, oh, you're over-treating pain. So now I'm getting in trouble for the same thing I was doing before that they were telling me to do, right? So the world changes and you have to adjust to it. So I had to deal with the threat of my license being taken away for 20 years. And it's like, yeah, it does stuff to you. A lot of my colleagues just quit. Forget it. I'm just going to go do something else. But I was like, no, I have a skill. I've been trained. Like, I help people. Like, even if it costs me some time and effort and money, I'm still here to help these. So I got to figure out how to deal with that issue while I'm trying to help people over here. And so that's the culmination of this book was like, and I say to people, look, I've had a lot of stress in my life, but because I read my book, I handled it a lot better, right? So
How do you go from the guy that says to patients, you might die, to you're too stressed?
like I would have all these patients come in and they were really stressed out. And I'm like, so what's going on? And when you're saying to them, like, okay, I think you have cancer, what I had to figure out is what makes having that diagnosis of cancer so stressful. So I'm going to use my brother as an example. He called a couple of years ago and said his prostate test was like, it's supposed to be 4, his was 800. And so he had decided he was just going to die. Well, it's 2 years later and he's doing just fine. And he'd gone to an oncologist, he got medications. His PSA is now less than 4. It's like 0.1 or something. It's less than mine, actually. So what goes into making these things so stressful? So when you read books that are out there now, but the books goes like, these are the top 100 stresses. Like, you lose your spouse, you lose your job, you get a diagnosis of cancer, whatever. Here's numbers 97, 96. But somebody that gets divorced, they might be happy. Like, that might be the best day of their life. I don't know, right? So what goes into making these things so stressful? So what I realized was that there are ingredients that make things stressful. So if I find a patient who's, their spouse died and they've been married for 50 years, you're like, I can't bring your spouse back. But what's making it so stressful is you're feeling worried and you're feeling guilty and you're feeling regret and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're having some hit to your self-esteem and you're feeling a little bored because you don't know what to do with yourself. And it's like, that I could do something about. So I can't bring your wife back, but I can change those other things. And that's why I think this book is so important for people.
Well, I haven't had any stress in a while. I kind of don't think about things that way anymore. But there seems to be a real heavy correlation between people who are ultra stressed and their ability to just pick up other people's problems, not even their own. Do you agree with that?
And I will say, and not to be biased here, but I think women do that way more often than men do. So men in general tend to minimize things so that they can just ignore them. Women tend to share them with others. One of the analogies that I use is a sponge. And so I find patients come in and I go, tell me what your stresses are. And they're like, well, my brother got diagnosed with cancer and my next door neighbor just had a stroke and my daughter's, and I'm like, wait, I wasn't asking about other people's stresses. I was asking about your stress, right? And so one of my rules is to say, you know what, if you're getting overwhelmed, I think of you as a sponge, right? So here's your sponge and you're soaking in all the stress. And then you're soaking in so much stress that you can't even hold it anymore. So it starts leaking out but you're still trying to take in new stress. You're like, no, stop. You're leaking. Stop leaking, right? So what I say to them is, look, your stresses are a 10. Everybody else around you is a 5. That's it. It's not that they're a 0. It's not like you're not going to pay attention to your son having a problem or your husband getting cancer or your mom, your next door neighbor having stress. You can pay attention, but it's a 5. Your stresses are a 10. And if you do that, then you don't leak as much. And then you got a lot more capacity to handle what's going on. As a doctor, I had to learn how to do this, right? Because you're in the office with 20, 30 patients a day telling you all these difficult stories to hear. And if you suck them all in, like, yeah, you'd be leaking by the end of the day. So I had to learn how to hear what people are saying, be empathetic, be sympathetic, and yet still maintain me so that I could function without falling apart every day.
Found out something that you have a belief on, which is you believe there's a percentage of people who claim to be depressed but are actually overwhelmed.
Well, they don't claim to be depressed. They get diagnosed as being depressed. And I think I was listening to one of your other podcasts, and like I was saying, the diagnosis is just there so people can get paid. And like, yeah, some of that's true.
Yep.
But what I've seen is that doctors are trained to look for symptoms. And so they see these symptoms, and these symptoms then lead them to a diagnosis. And so when you see these symptoms, they go, oh, those are those symptoms. That's the diagnosis for depression. So what do we do with people with depression? Oh, we give them a medication because we've decided that they're chemically imbalanced in their brain, and we're going to adjust the chemistry in their brain, and they do feel better. And so we go, yay, we felt better. But then, like, then they still have all the same problems, and they come back 3 months later, and now they're bad again. And so you up their dose, you change for different, and you're like, wait, what I found was the symptoms that we used to describe depression really are describing people who are overwhelmed. So they don't eat very well, or they eat too much, or they don't sleep at all, or they sleep too much, or they just don't have any energy, or they don't feel right. All those symptoms describe someone who gets overwhelmed. And it's like if you diagnose them being overwhelmed as opposed to you're depressed, then you go, oh, we just have too many problems. Let's get rid of some of these problems. Let's figure out a way around it. Maybe we'll give you medicine for a couple of months so you can feel better so that you can handle the problems, but you don't need this forever because we don't know whether you're chemically imbalanced or not. Interesting. I had gone to a couple of pharmaceutical talks, and all the research that was done on antidepressants are done in rats. I'm going, last time I checked, humans aren't rats. For the doctor to say you're serotonin deficient, he's gone off of a rat, which whatever. But I could say you're alcohol deficient because if I sent you to the bar and you had a couple drinks and you'd feel better and you'd be smiling, you're like, okay, so you must be alcohol deficient. So let's give you some more. Like, no, that doesn't even make sense. If I treat people for being overwhelmed, first off, they appreciate that because I think we were talking about this earlier. It's not a lifelong diagnosis. Like someone who's depressed thinks, oh my gosh, my brain and chemistry is going to be abnormal for the rest of my life and I'm going to have to take this medicine forever. No, if you're just overwhelmed, that means, and here's the deal. What I say to people is like, you might be able to handle 3 problems, but then the 4th problem comes along and all of a sudden now you're overwhelmed and this slope is very steep. So it goes, I'm okay, not okay. And it's like, so then not okay becomes a 5th problem. You're like, oh, now I have no idea what I'm supposed to do now. And so what I say to patients is, look, all I need to do is get rid of one problem, which then gets rid of that overwhelmed feeling. So that's already gone. And now you're back down to where your coping skills are. So we either get rid of one problem or we give you better coping skills so you can handle 4 problems instead of 3. And it's like, they go, oh, that's all you need to do? Yes, that's all you need to do.
Overwhelmed seems to be something that I don't understand why it's literally never mentioned. I don't see anybody ever talking about like they're overwhelmed or they've got like too much stress in their life at the moment because that's very common and happens to probably all of us. But you have some kind of technique, don't you, to reduce stress using adjustable maps or something, isn't it?
Well, so when people come to me and they're overwhelmed, the first thing that I talk about is number one, this is fixable. This isn't like you don't have to resign yourself for the rest of your life to being overwhelmed because they get in this cave. It's pitch black and they don't know how to get out. And they stand up and they hit their head on the ceiling and they reach out and they touch something slimy and it's all wet. And they're like, I don't like this place, but I don't know how to get out. So they just sit there and they're miserable. And you're like, no, you don't have to do that. There's a way out of this place. See that little light over there? That's the way out. Let me help you. Let me show you. Right. So one of the things that I found when people are overwhelmed is they have too much. It's one of the side effects of having skills. So my dog, one problem, that's it. I'm hungry. There was some food. I need to go out to the bathroom. Let me out the back door. That's it, right? There's another dog in the neighbor. I'm barking. That's it. And then they're done, right? Humans have the ability to handle more than one problem at a time. So we can have 5, 10, 15, 30 problems gone in through our head all at the same time, which is where we get overwhelmed because they're like, oh, I call it lumping. So they lump and they go, oh, I got this problem and this problem and that problem. And oh, yeah. And I forgot that I got this thing and I got this other one that I stick on top. And so now they end up lumped with this big giant heap of crap that they don't even know where to get started. And so they just sit there and go, oh, I don't know what to do. I'll just sit here and be miserable. So my first tool, and I got this from a friend of mine, is I call it shoe boxes. And it really comes down to what I call compartmentalizing. So the more separate you can keep these problems, then the less overwhelming they are. So the shoebox is a picture for people to put in their head. So if you walked into your bedroom and there was 100 shoeboxes and the bottom was over here and the lid was over there and the left was here and the right was there, and there's 200 shoes and two right boxes everywhere, you'd be like, my gosh, this is overwhelming, right? But if you walked into that same room, same amount of shoe boxes, but now the bottom's there, the two shoes are inside, the lid's on top, they're put on the closet. So there's 100 boxes in the closet, but that's not overwhelming. You're like, that's a lot of shoe boxes, but it's not overwhelming, right? And I realize that some of these problems are related, but the more separate you keep them, the less overwhelming it gets.
Is there any part of you that thinks maybe people that have these problems and get overwhelmed, they're looking too much at the problem and making it bigger instead of looking for solutions?
Yes. So when you're overwhelmed, you don't have coping skills anymore. So, and then when you have no coping skills, then you don't have the energy or the desire, because a lot of people tend to kind of pull back and retract and just kind of like hide and think, oh, maybe if I just hide, it'll go away. And so they don't even try to solve them, or they come up with a solution. They go, no, that's not going to work, before they even suss it out and try to figure out whether it would work or not. So one of the things that I find is like, if I just sit down with somebody and go, tell me what solutions you can come up with. And they're like, well, I thought this. They're like, but I know that's not going to work. I'm like, whoa, 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 let's back up. Let's look at these things again. Like maybe it could work. So if you start giving them possibilities and some solutions, then their brain starts thinking, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe I can figure this out.
There's a guy that I speak to on Twitter that I can't have him on the show because he will 100% get me cancelled and him probably put in jail. But he has this great analogy of someone who deals with the problems and someone lets the problems do the same. And it's person A has a bad day, stubs their toe, and throws the cupboard that stubbed their toe out the window and causes more problems for the people outside and then takes those problems to themselves. Person B has a good day because they're dealing with the problems, stubs their toe and just moves the cupboard an inch to the right so they don't do it the next day when they walk in the same way. And he keeps preaching on about it. And I remember for years people talking about him like, this is insane, this is crazy. But he put out a masterclass about it. And he said that people just
No,
walk around and do it and just rearrange their rooms, even just to like, so the things that are constantly annoying them aren't there, or even people that have dirty clothes everywhere, just lift them and put them in the cupboard. All of a sudden, 5% happier, 5% happier, 5% happier.
wow. So the book that I wrote, I co-authored a book with Jack Canfield called Mindset Matters. And Mindset Matters is saying just what you just said, which is like a lot of times it's just how you look at something, whether it makes it stressful or not. One of the things that I have seen is like people have what we call expectations. I should, I have to, I must, I ought to, right? So if they don't so if they're supposed to get 100 and they only get a 95, then they failed. If they go, my goal is to get 100 and they get a 95, now they're 95% success. Both got 95s. This one's 100% failure. This one's a 95% success. And it just is a matter of saying, hey, it's my goal versus my expectation. It can be just that simple.
Expectation living it's crazy at the moment. There's an author that has a really good theory about it, and he's got a great quote that ends this theory. It talks about people live too much in the future without actually looking at what they want to do in the future. And his quote is, stress is caused by being here but thinking you should be there.
Well, it makes sense, but here's what I'm going to say. So looking into the future, first off, we're the only organism out there that has any great look into the future, right? Like we can go, hey, let's do this next week. Hey, next week I'm going to go on vacation. Next year I'm going to do this. 5 years from now I'm going to retire. So we can look into the future, which is amazing. It's an incredible skill. It's what's made us as successful as we are, because I can go, hey, there's a storm coming. I'm going to close my windows up so the rain doesn't come in, right? The question is, why is looking into the future, why does it become so stressful? And here's the answer. So this was my insight that led to me writing the book, that we have these amazing skills. So one of the skills is we can envision the future. Awesome, 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 right? But it has a side effect. So I can write a prescription for a blood pressure medicine, say, oh, it's really great for your blood pressure, but it might make you a little dizzy, but we'll work on that. You'll get used to whatever, right? So when people go, hey, I can envision the future, but my side effect is then I have to worry about it. And then somebody goes, well, don't look in the future, just live for today. And you're like, wait, no, No, that's a really great skill. I don't want to give up that skill. How about we get rid of the side effect? And that's where I come in. I go, let's get rid of the side effect. And the first thing I did was I say to people, like I have patients that come in and say, Dr. Proud, I worry too much. And I'm like, oh, well, then you probably do, right? So I said, well, tell me what worry is. And they were like, well, and they would get this look on their face like, I don't know. It's actually really it's hard to define. So I was like, well, if you can't define it, how are you going to fix it? And when I talk to therapists, same concept, like they get an idea, they know worry is not a good thing, but they don't know what it is. So how do you fix it? So my definition then is I'm using this amazing skill of envision the future, but then I'm focusing on all the bad things that can happen. And here's the key, I'm having a fear reaction like right now. And the problem is there's nothing to make that stop because all I have to do is think about some bad thing and there's my fear reaction. And my fear reaction was meant like if a big dog came in the yard or a lion or a tiger, I'm like, ah, and I'd run away, right? But I'd either get away or I'd get eaten. Either way, the fear reaction goes away. But when you just think about a lion or a tiger, now there's nothing to make it stop. So what I'm finding is people are feeling this fear like 24/7. And your body was meant to function at a pretty high place, but not forever. And so that's where people are getting into trouble.
I had someone on the show last year when it was just audio. Don't know if anyone heard it, but he talks about how people have almost like a need for pain. They feel like if they achieve something and it wasn't hard enough to achieve, it wasn't worth it. Or if they want success as all these movie stars and all, it's got to be painful, it's got to be hard. And I've got this kind of idea now about stress because the more I hear people talking about it, like, oh, stress is killing us and stuff. Do you think that people are, they like being stressed? It's almost like a purpose now for them to be more stressed because it means they're doing more.
There's two things that I say. One, we take way too much for granted. Even when we tell people be grateful, I don't think they understand what I'm talking about. Like, so I realize I'm living better than the King of Germany did 400 years ago. Like, by far, right? I just opened up my refrigerator and there's all kinds of food in there. It's like I just turn on a tap and there's hot water. I jump in the shower. What? I mean, these are like amazing things that the King of Germany wouldn't even have thought about when he was around, right? So we tend to forget and tend to take for granted all these amazing things that we have in our abilities, right? And we tend to focus on what things aren't going right. So when you do that, you ignore all the good things and you only focus on the bad things, then things look bad, right? Second, social media, as powerful as it is, the side effect is they realize that we're always looking for bad things. So that's what they give us. So they give us, like, if a plane lands safely, do you hear that? Does it today, United Airlines 767 landed safely in Heathrow Airport, right? No, you don't hear that. Oh, but here's Indian Airlines and it crashed and 270 people died and one person survived, but 270, right? So all we hear about are the bad things. And it's anything in the world that anybody can think of that's bad, it gets put on and it's on my phone, it's on my tablet, it's on my TV, it's on my wife's phone. It's like it surrounds you. So we're surrounded with all this negative news, which then affects us whether we know it or whether we are aware of that or not. So I think those are two reasons why the stress level has been gone up, not down.
I see what you mean by we see the negativity more because there was a guy maybe about 2 years ago. He must have been drunk on Twitter, commenting under random posts and stuff. But he said something like, "We would never see on social media or the news that a man has made a cure for cancer until someone dies from trying his cure for cancer."
Well, and I will. Here's the problem, right? So I watch this news station, and it has a half an hour show. It's a national news show, and the first 25 minutes is all like war and this and that and Ukraine and Israel and Trump and blah blah blah, right? And then the last 5 minutes is always a segment on, look, and here's a trip around, and they have some happy story, right? But nobody pays attention to that because we first 25 minutes was all bad. Most people probably don't even make it to the last 5 minutes, but they go, well, and here's the key to humans. I'm sitting in this room and there's 10 people trying to give me $1,000. You're like, whoa, that's nice. But then there's a guy in the corner with a machine gun. Yeah, who am I paying attention to? I'm paying attention to the guy with a machine gun. Because if he kills me, the other $10,000 wasn't doing me any good at all, right? So literally our brain was set up to pay attention and look for dangerous things in our environment because that kills us. Like looking for good things is nice, but looking for dangerous things is you have to. So the media has figured out that we have to watch bad stuff to make sure our plane doesn't crash or to make sure we don't end up in a war or make, these are things we have to do. Listening to like a feel good story is nice, but I don't have to listen to that. But I have to listen to something bad. And that's why the media then feeds that bias that we have.
What's your opinion on prescribed medication for stress?
Well, so some people are so they lump so much, they're so overwhelmed, they're so stressed out that they really can't function. And so they need some medication to get them to a place where they can function because when you can't function, you can't solve the problem. Like if you're in war, right? You see these people that are they're just sitting there in their foxhole and they're not even they're like, they're like in a coma almost. And you're like, you can't function in that situation. So medication works very quickly and it's very easy to take and you know exactly what you're getting and you can get people off that ledge and get them back to where they can function. And then when you get them back to where they can function, then you can go, okay, let's solve some of these problems so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And then we can get rid of the medication.
It has its purpose. It solves the now. It solves the it getting any worse, really. But I don't know. To me, it just feels like it's more delaying having to solve the real issue by them, probably by themselves or with like some kind of therapist help. Like I always think it's like throwing a paper towel in a swimming pool. It's never really going to make a huge dent. It might do it for now, but it's still going to come back once you come off those meds.
Well, and I would agree with that, but they do have their role in that if you're so anxious and upset that you're hiding in your room and you won't come out, well, there's nothing I'm going to do to help that. If I can give you some medicine and get you out of the room, then we can start dealing with some of the issues in a way that will last longer. I'm not a big like, okay, you're gonna have to take medicine for the rest of your life. That's not my goal. My goal is to say, hey, let me find you different ways to handle your stress. Let's find a way to get to your happy place, and then you maybe not need the medication.
Goes though kind of to what we were speaking about before recording about the whole buzzwords of forever in life. People hear like they're going on medication, they automatically think this is it now for the rest of my life. This medication is going to be the thing that stops it forever, but they don't realize that at some point the carpet's got to get pulled, it's got to come away, and then that's when it goes because they're already imagining in their head forever. This is it.
Yeah, and I'll give you that. I mean, because one of the problems they run into is when you're relying on a medication, that means you got to be able to get to the doctor to get your prescription. The pharmacist has to give it to you. The insurance company has to pay for it. You have to be around to pick it up. You have to figure out what to do if somebody dumps it in, they accidentally dump it in the toilet. What are you going to do now? And it's like, so you put yourself in a position where you're not in as much control as you could be. If you learn how to handle your own stresses and you don't need the medication, then you have a lot more control in your life and a lot less things that can go wrong.
I genuinely think that's a perfect roadmap there that you mentioned about learning then how to deal with it because it is good for getting a hold of it. Problem is you need to kind of squeeze it then with your own methods. But have you found anything actionable technique wise to reduce stress that isn't the whole influencer woo woo nonsense?
Yeah, well, what I found when I was when I finished writing the book and I'm reading it, I'm like, this is all very concrete. And this is all very anybody can do this. And I didn't want to be like, oh, you just love yourself. Like, no, if you haven't figured out how to love yourself by 50, you're not loving yourself, right? No, we got to find other ways to make this work. So one of the things that I worked really hard at is to make this a very concrete, actionable book, right? So when I talk about worry, what I say is once you understand what worry is, so worry is envisioning the future, focusing on bad things, having a fear reaction now. Well, now it gives me very specific tools that I can use to fix it. So the first thing I say to people is like, thank somebody because you can envision the future. Because my 1-year-old grandson cannot. Like he hasn't figured out how to do that yet. So he doesn't sit at the breakfast table going, Dad, how are we going to pay for college? Like doesn't come up, right? My 95-year-old demented patient who's in a nursing home has lost that ability. He can't envision the future anymore. So he doesn't go, son, he doesn't even know what his son is. How are we going to pay for this nursing home next month? I don't know, right? It doesn't come up. So they literally can't worry because they don't have that skill. So the first thing I tell people is thank somebody that you can envision the future because that's an amazing skill. Second is you have choices in your life. Your brain has been set up and you've trained it to look for the bad things in the future. But you can also change and go, you know what? I'm going to acknowledge that bad things could happen, but I'm going to focus on good things happening. So when's the last time somebody worried about winning the lottery, right? They don't worry about winning the lottery. They go, oh, that would be really nice. $1 million in my pocket. What would I do? Right? So like I use myself as an example. When I was writing my book, I go, well, who's going to, I'm never going to get this book done. Even if I got it by, it's never going to get published. Even if it gets published, who's going to buy it? Even if they buy it, it's not going to help them. Like that makes you feel crappy, which then makes you not want to write the book. I was on the other hand going, all right, when this book gets done, it's going to be a great book and people are going to love it and they're going to change your life and everybody in the world's going to be in their happy place. And you're like, I got to get that book done, right? So just by focusing on the good things, that made me feel better, which gave me the energy to write. So I call it realistic optimism. So optimism is I'm looking at the good things that could happen, but you have to be realistic. So you can't live with your rose colored glasses on because otherwise that gets you into trouble. So you have to be realistic about it. So I didn't give up my day job as a doctor until the book was done or until I was ready to retire, which is what happened. And so they actually happened right at the same time because I knew that as an author, it's going to take a long time as an author, even if I'm really successful, to be able to pay my bills by being an author. So my realism was, okay, I think I'm going to be, this is a great book. I Would Your Happy Place, Roadmap to Less Stress is going to help a lot of people, but I'm going to keep my day job until I'm ready for that, right? And so realistic optimism is the key. But to be realistic and look at the problems, and here's what I say. So the next part is having that fear reaction. So is there a way to envision the future without fear? And the answer is yes. So what I found is I made up this sheet called a worry organizer. And the worry organizer is taking your ideas that are in the concepts that are in your head. So like patients go, I'm worried the plane's going to crash. And you're like, what? And they go, so that's column one. What are you worried about? I'm worried the plane's going to crash. Why are you worried about that? Well, I just saw on the news last week that a plane crashed and 270 people died. And you're like, oh, okay, right. So it can happen. So then the third is like, well, how likely is it to happen? And if it happens, how bad is it? So if a plane crashes, it doesn't happen very often, like 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, whatever, some ridiculously low number. But if it does crash, not a good thing, right? So then the next column then is, well, what can I do to make sure it doesn't crash? Well, so I can fly in a reputable airline. I can make sure the wings are de-iced. I can make sure the pilot's not drunk, right? All these things, right? And then the last column is like, okay, well, if it does crash, what am I going to do? So if the plane crashes and you're dead, well, there's nothing you're not going to do anything because you're dead. But what's going to happen to the people that are still here? Oh, let's make sure your will is taken care of. Let's make sure you have insurance. Let's make sure that somebody's signed up to make sure your kids are taken care of, right? So then now, but see, this is planning, but it's planning without fear. And so now you're looking into the future. You're saying you're acknowledging the bad things could happen, but you're fixing those before without fear before they happen. And so now when you've written it down on that organized fashion, you only have to do it one time. So it's done. And then you go to your spouse. Hey, can you see anything different? Can you add anything? Take it to your doctor, take it to your counselor, take it to your airline pilot, right? So now they don't have to figure out what's in your head because it's all written down. And when you wake up at 2 a.m. going, oh, I have to fly tomorrow, I'm gonna crash. You're like, oh, wait.
It's like almost like an anti-stress law type of thing. And
So somebody's asking, I'm like, it's a loose leaf notebook. Each stress, each worry is one page. Turn the page. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. So one of the things I say to people is like, I don't really want you to stop worrying, but I do want you to worry efficiently. And by writing it down, it makes it more efficient. By organizing your thinking, it makes it more efficient. By taking out the fear, it makes it more efficient. There was a book that I read, and the lady was a neuropsychologist or neuroscientist, and she ended up having a brain injury where she lost half her brain function. And you're like, whoa, that was devastating. Here's what she found out, that our brain has 4 parts. So one part is our thinking part of our brain. One part is our emotional, reactive, angry, fearful part of our brain. One part of our brain is like, oh, I'm connected with the universe. Oh, I feel so good. And the other part is like, let's try, let's do it, daredevil, right? So when she had her stroke, the thinking part of her brain and the reactive part of her brain went away. So all she had was like, I'm one with the universe and let's try. Why not? What the heck, right? And she loved it. She had a really good time. But as the rest of her brain started coming back online, she was like, no, I don't want that to come back yet, right? But what she realized was that, and this is what we were talking about, the overwhelm, when people are trying to solve a problem, if the part of their brain that is fearing and angry is taking over, it overrides what's going on in your thinking brain. It shuts it off. It doesn't work. So when you're running around with fear, you can't even think straight because that part of your brain's been turned off. So one of the analogies that I use is a barbershop quartet. So we need all four of those voices in the same place, and we want them all kind of like contributing to us. Like, I want that part of my goes, yes, I'm connected with everybody, right? And yeah, let's try. Why not? At the same time, like, well, I'm a little angry, a little fearful, but let me figure this out. I want them all being contributing.
Mentioned that you were coming on to my email list and some people that I speak to on Twitter and Instagram, and I told Taylor to message some people too. And he came back with a great one that one of the listeners emailed in about. And this is a great question. He asked if you could create an anti-stress law, what would it be? And he started giving some suggestions that he had heard. Things like the Spanish model, having a nap in the middle of the day, like locking all email accounts after 5 p.m., one day a week where your boss doesn't exist, things like that. Like, if there was one that you could put into the world, what would it be?
It'd be happy place. Because here's what I found with people. Like, all those are great suggestions, right? And they all will work temporarily. But if you don't know where your stresses are coming from and you don't know where you're trying to get to, they're not going to work. And so when I say, okay, here's the happy place, it's a place where you have gratitude. It's a place where you feel fulfilled. It's a place where you have pleasure and you anticipate pleasure. And it's a place, and this is the acronym I came up with called C.A.S.H. C.A.S.H is you feel connected and you feel in control. You feel accepted and you feel appreciated. You feel safe and you feel in a sense of awe or spirituality. And then you have hope. And when you put all those rooms together, man, that's a freaking awesome place. And guess what? It's a place you can get to once you know that's what it is you're trying to get to. So in my book, what I talk about is here's the rooms, and here's how you can get into those rooms. And then, oh yeah, and then there's these things that are trying to keep you from your happy place. These stresses, let's get rid of them. When you understand what you're trying to get to, you understand what's trying to get, it's keeping you from there, then you end up in your happy place.
I do love the theory and the concept of happy place, but the problem is, in like the last year, everybody's happy place now for some reason has turned to backpacking to a beach in Bali and starting a travel vlogging YouTube channel, and it's driving me insane. Do you think people are maybe using social media too much to form their own happy place?
The nice thing is you can just turn them off, right? Just like, yeah, not gonna watch that, right? That's the control we have, right? I tell people, one of the things I say is people will watch the news and like, oh, so I'll read one newspaper and watch the news for half an hour, maybe an hour. And that's it. Cause it's like, if I keep, like, I've had patients tell me they keep the TV on 24/7. And so bombs are going off 24/7 in their house from Israel, from Ukraine. This is going on. This Congress is that, this is that. And you're like, stop. Don't do that to yourself. Like, turn it off.